What do you think of the other side of the Lonzo equation, which is New Orleans?
Well, so I think I'm going to be the Debbie Downer on this podcast because my two teams that I have circled right now is fascinating or for the wrong reasons. New Orleans is one of them. So let's look at this kind of in sum. They moved back, what was it, 7 spots in the draft or 10 spots in the? It was 7 spots in the draft, and then gave up the Lakers 2022 first rounder, which whatever. But they also gave up Lonzo Ball, and in return, they got rid of the Steven Adams and Eric Bledsoe money so that they could make a run at Kyle Lowry. That was what they did. And they didn't get Kyle Lowry. They got Tomas Satoransky, Garrett Temple, and a second-round pick. And, then they give up a lottery-protected first for Devonte Graham, who I like, and I think he's, his off-the-dribble three kind of waned last year, but he can shoot the three ball. He's proven that over the past 2 years. And if he even returns, because he wasn't too healthy last year, and the dynamics of the roster were different in Charlotte. If he returns to what he was doing in 2019, 2020, where he was authentically one of the most valuable offensive players in the league, given how important he was to Charlotte, that's huge for them on 4 and 47 or whatever it was. But the opportunity cost here, maybe you could look at it as, oh, well, the Pelicans aren't sending out their first round pick next year because they're going to be a lottery team. That's not the end goal. To be a lottery team against that you keep your first round pick in the Devonte Graham sign and trade. You can appreciate the aggression level with which they dumped salary, but it was another instance of them undoing mistakes from last offseason, like with Stan Van Gundy, apparently. And that could go one of two ways. You could give them kudos for not doubling down on it and trying to insist they were right. But at the same time, it's this is so confusing to me. And I'm trying to wait to give a more profound take on them until the offseason is over. But what is the other move now? You just maybe you didn't want to pay Lonzo Ball that money. I get it. But that was the return that you got from Chicago? I'm just so confused. And why did you have to give up a protected first rounder for Devonte Graham? He was coming off a down year. I'm so confused by their offseason. And there are so many moving parts, and I don't want to get too nuanced into it because whenever we talk Pelicans on this podcast, the numbers just implode. I love the Pelicans. I love every team. But their offseason, to me, they've got to be the biggest loser in the entire league right now. And I'm not saying Ziaire Williamson is going to ask for out. He's not. No one in his position is not signing that second deal when it's time for him to do it. I'm not worried about that. I'm just why shed that money when you're sure that you need it. Like you said, I'm a big proponent of figure out the cap space equation when you need it. And if you weren't going to use that, and it didn't have to be Kyle Lowry, but on someone else, it's just I don't know. If they even would have kept Lonzo Ball and said, you know what, we did this so we could pay both Lonzo Ball and Josh Hart and not worry about the tax at all. That I even would have been just a little bit more on board with. I also don't understand why they're so down on Lonzo Ball. I know a lot of Pelicans fans, bloggers, podcasters, I try and follow them for their point of view, and they're making sense. Lonzo might be a touch overrated defensively. He's fine, but he's not a one-on-one stopper. He's portable, which I think is valuable. And he can't be your point of attack offensive guy. He can, if you're running the floor, he will find people in transition. He's turned into, I think, a really good shooter, but he doesn't get to the rim. He's not even a threat to shoot on drives or whatever, or efficient when he's doing so. I get being down on him, but that was the return. You have to believe that, okay, if they let him go for that, there wasn't much more out there. You have to assume they did their due diligence. Then just keep him. Was 4 and 85 that disastrous of a deal from a team perspective? Well, Siri apparently thinks so. My Apple Watch is going off. But I think so far they have royally fucked up the offseason for them. And I like Devonte Graham, but the path by which they've gotten here, it's just nonsensical to me.
To me, it feels I think the Zion thing, I agree, it would be totally unprecedented if he were to really start leveraging his way out now. I don't think that's going to happen. I do still think that a lot of what they've been doing has been motivated by a fear of that, and also by David Griffin decide I need to keep my job. I need to take some swings. The failure that really seems obvious to me, not having any intel on this at all, obviously, but if they thought, so there was a scenario, I think, like you said, where, all right, the trade that they made involving Valanciunas, they got the best player in the trade. That's cool. They saved some money, and there was a pathway there for a minute where they can keep Lonzo, keep Josh Hart, and go out and sign Kyle Lowry. That was possible. But if they thought they were going to get Kyle Lowry, when clearly the Heat had this like buttoned up and done before free agency ever started, they were mistaken, and they were foolish to think that, because there were several teams that were going to be able to make Lowry an offer in a similar range, and there's no scenario where he was going to pick New Orleans at the end of his career when he's trying to compete at a high level. I think the Miami thing was done forever, and so it was totally unrealistic to be making moves with an eye towards signing Kyle Lowry, especially when you're a team in the Pelicans position. And the other thing I think it seems likely to me is that Lonzo just kind of Eric Gordon them and said, do not match an offer sheet. Like, I don't want to come back here. That's right. That to me seems more plausible than the Pelicans saying 4 for 85 is too much, because it's not too much. I think there's a very likely scenario where Lonzo did not want to stay, and the Kyle Lowry thing was just a total botch job, or maybe the Pelicans knew that they weren't, whatever. And now they're in this position where Graham might be, if Graham, like you said, Graham might be one of the best dollar for dollar signings of this offseason. It's very possible. Face the floor and run some pick and roll, pick and pop, whatever. But I think the Pelicans are maybe slightly better, and we can leave after this because I get it. Nobody cares. But they're maybe slightly better. But man, like, if they thought that they had a path to do what it seemed like they could with Lowry and Lonzo and stuff, like, that was just that didn't seem like it was going to happen. And so now I don't know what they do. I don't know how they sell this as like, this is the big offseason, we had to make improvements, we had to get better, and they just didn't. They didn't make like meaningful changes.
Yeah, and I think if you look at everything they did individually, none of it's just super egregious. Maybe even the Lonzo thing, because you look at the number and you're like, hey, Tomas Satoransky can still be fine. But just everything in sum, because I don't even mind if you gave up the protected first-round pick for Devonte Graham, fine. You want to operate like you're doing it to operate as an over-the-cap team, maybe to keep Josh Hart, fold the Devonte Graham thing into a bigger deal if it's with the Memphis trade. I get everything. The payoff needed to be bigger after all this series of events than I think that they got to.